Well, we're at the end of the book of Numbers, and some of you, if you've kind of been you're sticking with us, you're going, "Thank you." Deuteronomy will have some fun stuff too, but we're at the end of Numbers, and here we have again the daughters of this man who didn't have any sons. I'm not even going to try pronounce his name. It starts with the Z, ends with the D. If you've read the passage, pronounce it however you want, and one day we'll know. Anyways, if you remember going back to Numbers 27, there's the question of here's a man, he's got 5 daughters. How does land distribution work for them within the clan? How do they get provided for? So there's all these kind of questions because it was a patriarchal society. That's how it worked. And so, how to work this situation? And so Moses gave kind of a discernment that he received from God then, but now comes another question related to these women. And it was, well, what happens if they marry and then patriarchal culture, then the land goes to the man, but what if he's not from the clan? Then the family line is all confused, or maybe it just is removed. And again, there's all sorts of cultural and social issues that may not seem as relevant for us today, but again, this was a big deal. And getting into all those details, I'm not really concerned about going into. Is here again is how is what I want to remind us of how ancient Israel viewed the old covenant and the law that God had given through Moses, and how God even kind of just adds to it. Oh, here's a situation that hadn't been fully addressed in what's been given before. And here again, we see another question in chapter 36, again, extending on from the situation brought about because of this man with 5 daughters and inheritance rights and so on and so forth. This law keeps getting amended and added to. And that's what I want to just help us be reminded to see that the first 5 books of the Old Testament, what is often called the Torah or the books of law, in here, they don't cover every situation. But what they give us is a pattern of how God was prompting his people to use and view these rules, regulations, commands. That they're principles to apply to new situations. And so we find principles. And the law moves and it shifts a little bit, but always based on, again, I'll go to Jesus, the core principles of love God, love your neighbor as yourself, which then Jesus says that also includes enemies. And so it becomes things like when we have situations where 2 laws conflict, how do we resolve that? And it's not easy sometimes. And it takes conversation, it takes dialogue, it takes discernment. I mean, we've been experiencing that just in the last year, just as churches. You know, some go, well, God says there's a command in the scriptures to gather together and worship. And there's that instruction, Hebrews, for example. And then there's also submit to authority, submit to government. You know, God's instituted them. And but if they seem to conflict, how do we respond? And so that's where we talk together and we discern and we pray and we search the scriptures, because the scriptures isn't a roadmap to answer every question with this verse and just there's the answer. It's God revealing his character to us, and we take that and his display of love, his display of holiness. Well, how do we work this out? And sometimes we're going to disagree. But if we're continuing to pursue Jesus and we're continuing to pursue loving God and loving our neighbor, even when we disagree, we'll still do it in unity. And that's an amazing thing. And that's one of the things, frankly, our world needs to see. People who can agree to disagree and still be family, no matter what, because any disagreement we may have is not going to be greater than our common foundation that we are the people of Jesus. And we're called to love him and love others in his name. It's not always easy being family. Thank God he sent his son and his spirit, and we walk it through together. May the Lord bless you and keep you. May the Lord make his face shine upon you. May the Lord be gracious to you. And today would you know his peace. God bless.